metal toxicity. So I'm not going to give people a pass just because they have a medical necessity. Now, one choice might be better than the other, but we're fooling ourselves to act like we can implant something in our body and it's going to be completely healthy.
If you don't understand things from a genetic standpoint, you can drink too much caffeine or eat too much sugar or take the wrong medication and have a really bad reaction.
Yeah.
Natalie Jill is a midlife expert who helps women simplify complicated health topics and redefine healthy aging. With the top-rated podcast, Midlife Conversations, 2 best-selling fat loss books that sold out in stores everywhere, and numerous TV appearances on shows like The Doctors, she built a high 7-figure fat loss business and transformed over 250,000 women's bodies and health. Over 50 years old herself, she has changed the conversations around age, potential, and possibility. In addition to her midlife fat loss business, she helps founders, executives, and CEOs skyrocket their sales and find more money through upleveling their vision, dialing in their message, expanding their brand online, and fixing their sales and webinar conversion process. She used the exact method she teaches to grow her globally recognized fat loss and fitness brand with well over 3 million social media followers worldwide, 2 best-selling books, a top-ranked podcast, and recognition from Forbes, greatest several years running as one of the top health and wellness influencers in the world. Welcome, Natalie Jill. Well, everyone, I have Natalie Jill on today. We've been trying to get her on the show for a period of time, and as much time as I spend in her town, you would think would be easier, but now we're just going to do it remote because that's the easiest way to get her on. And she has quite a complex history, and it took her a period of time to wrap her mind around issues with her breast implants. And Dr. Ricky is her doctor, who I know, and he really helped kind of pave the way for her to get better. So I'm going to have Natalie explain how she had 33-year history with implants.
Yes, it's
surgeries and everything.
It's kind of embarrassing when I think back and that I was in that much denial. So I first got them when I was 19 years old and very young. And it was one of those things I just always was self-conscious about my chest. It was something I always thought about. I didn't even know implants were an option. I remember I was waiting tables at a restaurant and 2 of my friends there had them and they said, "Oh, you can get implants. It's easy." So I didn't really think much about it. I was literally 19 years old. I went to a consult. They were told me they were safe. I got them in against my parents' better judgment, but I was 19 already. I was an adult. I put them in, and that started a journey of 33 years of 5 sets, lots of complications, and complete denial that they were actually unhealthy or hurting me or could be dangerous in any way. It's all I knew. So literally 33 years, 5 sets that I had them in.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about a little bit offline. So my background, because I haven't chatted with Natalie other than briefly at a meeting, is in oncologic reconstruction. So I always got faced with patients who've had a lot of surgery, and it was always, she's going to talk about capsular contracture, which she experienced. And like her doctor was great in that he listened to her and tried to help her, basically meet her where she was. She had problems with her implants and was having, symptoms, and we can go through the whole list of those. But the more surgery you have, the more likely you are to have a contaminant introduced into the situation that leads to a capsular contracture, in my opinion. And that sounds exactly like your situation.
Yeah. So the first set I had at age 19, I remember I had them in for about 2 years. They were the traditional original silicone before they were taken off the market. And what had happened was one of them became really hard and high up. And the other one, you couldn't even feel an implant. And this was back before anyone was talking about BII or even ruptures or even silicone leaking outside of the capsule. There was no conversation around that. And I went to multiple surgeons, and all I kept hearing was, "Oh, this one was a winner. We don't even feel the implant. And this one, you have something called capsular contracture." So and it started hurting, the capsular contracture. So the surgeon at the time that I went to address it, silicone had just become banned. So this was the first time that silicone was banned. And he said, "You know what? Silicone's been banned. It's taken off the market. Just to be safe, let's go in and just replace them with saline. I'll remove the capsule." Well, I woke up from that first surgery to the surgeon and my mom standing over me saying, the reason your one silicone felt so natural is the whole thing had ruptured. And at the time, they were not aware of like the whole capsule having to contain it. So I had silicone everywhere throughout my body. So they had to not just take that out, they had to take actually a liposuction to get out all the silicone that had ruptured throughout my body, and they couldn't get it all. So even till this day, this is from when I was, gosh, at the time, 21 years old. There's little hard silicone balls near my lymph nodes from that original rupture that was super disruptive. Now, what I didn't know then, which have connected the dots now, is I do have an autoimmune. I will never know if that original rupture is what started and triggered that autoimmune that I got. So that was kind of my first red flag with implants. And I remember my mom at the time saying, I just wanted to tell the surgeon to take them out. These are so, ridiculous, but they didn't. We put saline in, and I started a second journey of saline implants, which created another capsular contracture. It took a few years, but another capsular contracture. And I went on to replace, what's that?
On the same side?
The same side first, that same side. It kept recurring. And so it would sort of live with it. It wouldn't hurt if it didn't look different. But I would, over the years, go and replace it when it would get bad enough. And nobody ever told me, it's a bacterial infection. We've got to get that out. Each time they would just take out the implants, put a new set in. It would be okay for a little while. And then sure enough, the capsular contracture would come back.
Let's pause there. So what Natalie's describing is, first of all, silicone was brought to market in 1962. A few years later, Cronin and Giroux published a paper about their experience with the first placement of these devices. And then Connie Chung basically ran a story, and in 1991 and then 1992, there's a moratorium placed on silicone devices. And they don't get reintroduced to the market until 2006. So during 92 to 06, unless you're running a study, you're getting a saline device. Now, it still has a silicone shell. It's just the filler is basically saline. And back then, we did not use PCR. Now, everybody remembers from the pandemic a basic COVID test, an antigen test. If it was equivocal, you could do a PCR test, and that would tell you yes or no. And so in 2019, I started exclusively using PCR testing and have the largest experience with that in the world for patients who are explanting because of breast implant illness. So I published a paper last year. And my thought about what you're describing is biofilm or bacterial contamination that's very difficult to culture or find in the traditional methods. Have they used PCR testing or had that available back when you were having that issue? That would have been at least a more sensitive and specific method to identify what you're experiencing. Totally. All the things that I learned in training from a evidence-based standpoint are a little jaded because of the technique used to determine what was there, what wasn't there. And if for those of us who, believe the world is round, not flat, science does and is a thing. The PCR testing works and will show you what is there. So in 29% of the cases of explant specimens, I find bacterial contamination. What I don't know, and it would take larger centers or more surgeons doing surgery for capsular contracture to clarify, like, how many of these are specifically bacterial contamination? Because there'll be a percentage that aren't. Somebody who had a hematoma, somebody who'd had, if you exclude everybody, having multiple surgeries, there would be other, potential plausible explanations. But that's certainly for me, like when you say you had a capsular contracture, I immediately go like, you had a bacterial contaminant in there over that period.
Yeah. And I believe that very likely was true. I also think, and again, I'm not a surgeon, I'm not a doctor. I have this whole theory that while I would get capsular contracture, we know now it's almost like your body's trying to push it out of your body. It doesn't want it there, and you're getting this hardening around it. I think that hardening that tissue maybe even protected me from some of the problems that implants show, because I always thought I feel healthy, I feel great. I did have an autoimmune. My autoimmune's celiac, though. It's a more mild one, but I always felt like when people would talk about BII or problems with them, problems with how they're making them sick, I thought that was crazy. I wasn't bought into that. I thought, well, I feel fine, and I've had many sets other than capsular contracture. I believed I didn't have a problem. Where my problems really started health wise, and I didn't even connect it till implants until they were completely removed, was when my final surgeon that had put them in and replaced them, she said, just like what you said, capsular contracture is typically caused by a bacterial infection. What I want to do is clean out that whole pocket, remove that capsule, seal that up. They were under the muscle originally. Let's clean all that up. Let's let that part heal. We're going to create a new pocket over the muscle, and we're going to put them there, and we'll do a textured implant, a gummy bear one. And that should stop the problem of capsular contracture. She also recommended a prescription for life, which I never took, which was going to help apparently so I don't get that infection again. I did not take it. It was some type of, I'm going to say the wrong thing. There was some prescription she wanted me to take that would stop your body from trying to reject it.
So was it an antibiotic, or was it singular, a nasal spray?
That's what it was. No, it was some type of, I think it was like a singular. It was actually a pill though, but it was something along those lines.
For capsular contracture.
Yes. So I did not take that, but I did not get capsular contracture again. But what's interesting is this kind of aligned with being in perimenopause and approaching menopause when she did that final set. I'm 53 now at the time of talking to you. And so as I started to have a lot of these problems like midsection weight gain, and I'm in the fat loss fitness industry, like this is not something that I had experienced, right? So all of a sudden I'm starting thick in the middle. I'm starting to get tired all the time. I'm starting to have these lots of pain, injuries. I tore a bicep, broke a foot, I ruptured a disc in my back, like lots of things going on that I just put in the box of, you know what, I'm getting older. It's towards menopause. It's got to be this. I was not associating it yet with implants.
I think, I listened to your conversation with Dr. Ricky, and you mentioned, and we'll go back to this, but one of your main symptoms was joint pain that resolved after explant.
Yes.
And so when you have inflammation, and now we have a more cause and effect relationship. So patients who have bacterial contaminate, so we'll say that's what you experience. If that's staph epi or QD bacterium, staph epi is associated with production of a molecule called oxylipin tinhome. So a scientist has shown this now, and basically a cascade of events happen in the immune system to ramp up the symptoms, one of which can be joint pain or muscle pain, fatigue. And so like you're talking about going through and experiencing perimenopause and menopause. I have a lot of patients who are just, honestly, Natalie, they're in their 30s and they think they're having this problem. So that's normal one if you're listening to this. Like in your 30s, this is normal.
Well, so what's wild is I still wasn't connecting the dots at all. I'm literally thinking, I started hormone replacement. I'm thinking I just got to get tighter on my diet. I've got to be really strict. I got to work out harder. I was just doing all the things that I knew. What got my attention, and there's a little bit of a journey here, so bear with me here. What got my attention is I started having a really bad blood sugar dysregulation, a really bad one, where I would eat berries, for example, which are very low glycemic, and my blood sugar would spike to almost 250. So just a really interesting blood sugar dysregulation. And not only would it spike super high, I was starting to get really low blood sugar in exchange. So my family, we have a history of autoimmune in my family. My sister's type 1 diabetic, but my mom is type 2 diabetic. So I went down the whole traditional Western medicine of, am I approaching type 2 diabetes? We started looking at that, tested for juvenile diabetes. I ended up actually in the hospital because of a massive blood sugar dysregulation. So still not connecting any dots here. But what happened was in my blood sugar problem and going towards a ton of Western medicine doctors, a good friend of mine, Laura Frontero, who happens to focus in the gut health space, she said to me, Natalie, parasites and bad gut health can cause blood sugar dysregulation. And I thought she was crazy. I'm like, what is she talking about here? I really thought she was crazy. It was so foreign for me, but nothing was helping me. I was, I tried the metformin. Nothing was helping my blood sugar problem here. The natural stuff, berberine, nothing was helping. So I thought, what do I have to lose? Let me let Laura do her thing. So I did a test. I did a GI mapping test, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And it literally showed parasites, which it's rare to show that. Sometimes, usually those don't even come, but mine showed it. So I thought, okay, she's crazy, but maybe there's something to it. So I went through an entire parasite protocol. So what does this have to do with the implants? Well, I'll tell you. I went through this whole parasite protocol for about 4 months, and right away started feeling better, started releasing a little bit of weight naturally, started getting focus and energy back. And I was praising Laura, like, this is amazing. You're a genius here. And she said to me, Natalie, something's feeding it. Like, you don't just get parasites. Like, you could eat the same organic salad, the same raw sushi as somebody that doesn't have something feeding it. And that person's stomach and gut biome will not let those thrive in there. And something is feeding yours, or this wouldn't have happened to you. That's what she said to me. So I started going down the rabbit hole of like, what could that be? Well, because I had maxed out my insurance, basically my deductible in the hospital stay, I thought, you know what, let me just go do all these other tests. So I went and did a mammogram, and the mammogram came back that I had this rupture. Now I had gummy bear implants that were not supposed to rupture, and came back that it had completely ruptured. I remember I called my surgeon, who's Dr. Kat in LA. She's amazing. And she said, there's no way. I mean, those are the gummy bear implants. That shouldn't have ruptured. I flew to LA to have her herself look and do a breast ultrasound. She then ordered a breast MRI, all confirmed that I had this massive rupture, which she said.
These were the textured 410 implants from
textured gummy bear implant. It's like a gum. I don't know if they're called. They're the hard preformed gel. Yeah. So not supposed to rupture, right? So she didn't. We none of us believed it. We're like, there's no way. I thought there was a mistake, but I did not just an MRI. We did an ultrasound, two of them. I did a breast MRI. I did all of it, and the mammogram. So all confirmed it, which she then said they've got to come out. Now, what's interesting is even the doctor that did the breast ultrasound and other surgeons, I couldn't believe it. They said, it's okay. As long as it's in the capsule, you can leave it. And I thought that was crazy. Like, wait, I have a ruptured gummy bear.
There, because I don't want this to go unrecognized, because intuitively you knew that was a bad thing to be in your body.
Yes.
And this is something that is basically passed on as dogma, that it's okay to have a ruptured implant as long as it's contained. Now, the science that I referred to about oxylipin 10-home shows that there's communication between your scar capsule, which is the sac around the implant your body makes, and the breast tissue.
Yes.
So if we're just following basic logic, and that can happen from the bacteria on the surface of the implant, then by all means, when something ruptures and leaks into that sac, there's more ability to communicate, because that scar capsule that your body makes is not impervious.
Right.
Think of it like, something that's knitted or has openings or pores in it. It's not impervious. So there is always going to be communication. And intuitively, you knew that was a bad idea to keep that.
Yes.
But I want everybody listening to understand it is not a good idea to have something that is defective or broken leaking in your body. That just intuitively doesn't make any sense.
Which is crazy that so many people would say, even doctors were saying it's okay. You can keep it there, which is, I just knew that it needed to come out. Now, then what happened was, so this started to make sense to me. And of course, Laura's thinking, well, I knew something was going on here. Like, something else is feeding this. So the question is, I don't know how it ruptured. Now, I have my own theories, whether it was the mammogram itself that ruptured it, which is very possible, or whether it was my sauna, which I'm a huge fan of sauna. But when you think about it, I know you can't say this, but I will. A sauna is heating you kind of like from your inside out. And I was doing that every day thinking this is a great thing. And I'm still, to this day, I love my infrared sauna. I use it daily. But I don't know, like, if it was a combination or what happened there, but something happened to basically destroy this implant. So I go to multiple surgeons, to get consults on replacing them. It's not even in my head at this point to take them out. This is where I have a lot of compassion for women that don't want to take them out, because I was literally that person. I had them for 33 years. I was in the fitness industry. I was on the cover of magazines. Like, this was part of my image, my body. People can say what they want, but this was part of me for 33 years. So this was it wasn't just an easy decision, just go remove it. I'm thinking still, let's replace them. I had multiple surgeons agree when I asked the question, they say, you'll hate how you look. It's not, you've had them for so long, they're safe. Let's just replace them. Like, everyone said that. It wasn't until I went to Dr. Ricky Brown, who you mentioned out here, who was the first one when I went in and said, I want to replace them. He said, why don't you just take them out? And I got very defensive when he said it. It was like, what? What do you mean take them out? Like, are you crazy? And he was the first, and I really give him a lot of credit for bringing that up because, he puts them in still. He puts them in and takes them out. And he said, I think you should take them out. And when I asked why, he said, you've had so many surgeries, you've had health things going on. You don't know what these are causing. Just take them out. And if you hate it, heal first. If you hate it, we can always put them back in. But you don't know what's on the other side of this. So he suggested that to me.
Yeah, I think his interview with you is very good. So anybody listening could go back and go through Natalie's interview on her podcast with Dr. Ricky Brown. But this is where both, and we'll take it in two parts because I feel like people who are young who get them put in like you did don't really understand all the ramifications because they're I don't say younger, but it's more of a life experience thing. Like it's have a discussion. And my discussions always revolved around cancer. The youngest person I ever operated on for breast cancer was 24, but there's instances of younger patients. Now that's a whole different, conversation.
Totally.
Versus what you were experiencing where you're unhappy with the appearance and you wanted to change it. And I always think of it this way, like no matter what I tell you at that period of time in your life, you're going to take it and with a grain of salt because you're in to change and that's fine. But you cannot get somebody that young who's focused on that change to change their mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And you couldn't have told me at 19 not to do it. I'm like, I didn't read the paperwork. I signed away. I was determined. Like I was a teenager. I mean, I think of my daughter, she's 17. I can't tell her what to do. Like she's like I can tell her as her mom, but she's a teenager, I was a teenager at age 19. I wasn't thinking consequence. Older seemed far away. Like it wasn't registering. But what I will tell you is I had all the fears a lot of women listening to this probably have. I thought, well, I'm going to be like a negative A cup. I'm going to be concave. It's going to look terrible. This is going to mess with my image. And, my husband was super supportive. Like when I was originally going to replace them, he was not encouraging either way. He just said, I know you and I want you to be happy. So if it's going to upset you to take them out, keep them in. But as soon as he heard with Dr. Brown about taking him out, he was like me. We went down the rabbit hole together. Neither one of us could sleep thinking about it. And we both kind of agreed like, hey, what do I have to lose? Like, let's just take him out, put him back in later. No, I will acknowledge I had a very supportive husband and I understand some women don't have that situation. They have, whether they're single or they have a husband that's against them removing them or doesn't believe this. So I understand I have like a little bit of a privilege there because I definitely had a supportive husband that said, it's fine. Like whatever it is, it's fine. So, and I just to kind of fast forward, I literally have nothing anymore. Like I am, people say flat as a board. When I see people saying that they're an A cup, no, I'm like a negative A. There is nothing there. And he did a lift to make it so it wouldn't just be loose skin, but there is nothing. And I'll tell you what, the way that I feel now, I don't care because I feel like a different person and it would never occur to me to put them back in now.
Yeah. And I think if you go back to when you were 18, 19, and this is a very specific thing I'm going to say, you were not told about or probably couldn't have a fat transfer based on your body habit.
Yes. And it wasn't a thing then. I didn't know of anyone doing that then. Right. And I weighed like 95 pounds when I did this at age 19. So I don't know where they would have taken it from.
But that's always the rub. Like people ask me like, why didn't somebody discuss fat transfer with them? Well, there's multiple reasons. It could be the surgeon's experience is not, in their mind, good enough to sit there and go through it with the patient and give them the confidence about doing that, procedure. Second is patient variable. Patient's too lean. They don't have enough fat, and they know that to get the patient expectation met, that an implant is basically the only way in that particular situation. Like when you are 18, 19 years old, they can do that when you're, 90 pounds and that's it. So I feel like that gets, talked about now in a negative way because it wasn't explained initially. So, that's a patient surgeon kind of situation.
Yeah. Well, I even when I was removing them, I asked about that option, and
Mhm.
he was not against it. But what he told me, which I understand to be true, is that when you put fat in initially, you're going to lose 40-50% of it over time. And he didn't say he was against it. He wanted me to heal first, and if I still wanted it later, to go back and revisit that. The reason I have not done a fat transfer yet, and I can't say I never would. I don't think I will, but I can't say what I'll decide 5 years from now. Right now, that's not on my radar. I don't. I have friends that have had fat transfer, and I hear the same thing from all of them. They have to take liposuction from multiple areas of your body. I don't have a lot of extra fat, number one, so I
Okay.
hear it's painful, and there's a lot that they've got to take, and it does not all survive. So you go through all that for what? So I haven't. I've decided at this point that it's more working on my own self and why I felt I needed these. And so I'm healing there. And look, I'm the farthest person against plastic surgery. I just had my eyelids done, and I was very public about it. So I'm for it. To me, it's a little different doing that versus implanting something. So I just have my own personal different journey thoughts around it. But I don't see at this point that I would be doing anything else on my breast.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Natalie's talking about. It depends on the patient and their body and what options are really available. So if you have somebody who really doesn't carry much in the way of body fat, it's always
Mhm.
going to be a challenge to help them. And I will tell you, Natalie, you're not saying the quiet part out loud. Is I have a lot of patients who want fat transfers who are taking Ozempic and Mongoro and
Yeah, how are you going to do that? Like you have skin. You have loose skin.
and
There's
I'm
no
like,
fat to take.
y'all can't ask me to do a fat transfer while you're
Yeah.
taking, peptides like that. I mean,
No.
that's going to be, I can't even begin to wrap my mind around how to explain that to a patient other than like, you have to
Yeah.
have those things 3 to 6 months and have an appetite and have enough body fat
Yes.
to actually help you. And then, it's like, the concern over fat transfers is much to do about nothing. So butt lifts and facial fat augmentation and breast augmentation with fat all work.
Yeah, I had that under my eyes. I had a fat transplant under my eyes, and it worked great.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's more about the space where you put it in the breast. There's just a limited area. It's kind of think of like the pocket on the front of a shirt. Once the pocket is full, you can't just keep shoving stuff in the pocket, right? It's going to come out of the
Yeah.
pocket. And that's basically the skin is the cover. And then below that is where you put the fat because that's the fatty layer on the body. It's not, you don't want to put things in the old breast pocket and we don't stuff things into the breast tissue because you make cysts and other weird stuff. You don't really want any of that. So,
You know what's interesting? I think of like I go at my gym now. I just think about this. A lot of women in their 20s, even early 30s, there's a huge focus on developing glutes and having a bigger butt, for lack of right, whether it's a butt implant or actually a lot of people like really building muscle there. Well,
right.
I want to share when I was in my early 20s, that wasn't a thing. We used to hide our butts. Like we would wear literally a sweatshirt around it. And it was like it was a body type that was in, and the body type that was in was super thin with big implants. Like that was the thing. So just like somebody in their 20s might not relate to this, but they're building their glute muscles, it was literally that type of way. Like I don't have any friends, not one friend that did not get implants in their early 20s. Like that was a big thing for us. So is as much as somebody could say, I don't get it, I would never do that now. This was the thing. You almost looked funny if you didn't do it.
Yeah, I've interviewed patients and they've told me all sorts of things like Baywatch was an influence.
Hmm.
Barbie was an influence.
Yeah.
Magazines, of course, were an influence. Patients tell me that for modeling work, they were told, like, hey, you need to have bigger breasts. We can get you more work.
Yes. I was a fitness model. I was guilty of it. I mean, I had big implants on fitness covers. I'm sure I influenced that in a bad way. But we this was a different time. Like we grew up with commercials. If you can pinch an inch, talking about drinking diet tab. Like it was body shaming was a real thing if you were overweight and didn't have big boobs. Like this was a thing. So I understand when people say they don't get it, but this was different times, and
Yes.
we was really a lot of pressure to look, and people commented. They would say things. It was like a tease thing. Like if you're flat chested, people don't really do that now.
No, it's a different time now. Now it's more emphasis, like you said, on the glute region, and then
Mhm.
with fat transfers to the buttocks, there's been safety issues. People uh, have been injured and passed away in both, Florida and California. And I wrote a safety paper about it for the one of the societies, but it's shifted.
Yeah.
From the very done breast look.
Totally.
Not. And then, I have so many people, and you talk about this a lot, leading a more healthy, non-toxic lifestyle, and
Yeah.
how that no longer, those things don't align if you have breast implants. So
Yep.
there's always this thing with, different influencers, one of which brought me up on their show the other day, which was interesting, talking about, what we do. And we've tried to just make sure we help patients get well, whether that's, with surgery or without surgery. We have a whole program that really helps, just like you ran Laura's program to help with that, knowing that
I love that.
instance, can you actually manage, like you found out, it's very difficult.
Well, so what's interesting is I mean, nobody will change my beliefs around this now because of my actual experience. And just to kind of fast forward what happened, I teach fat loss. I teach nutrition. I'm a licensed master sports nutritionist. This is what I do with women. Where this really helped in a whole nother level is this really I rethought all my programs for women after I went through this. And the reason why is 19 pounds, I'm 19 pounds lower, 19 pounds without changing my diet or my workouts since this journey. Now, why did that happen for me? I'll tell you why. Because I didn't realize how bad my body was at detoxing. I didn't realize how much all of this was feeding things. And it's my belief that the implants, that rupture in me had really been creating a big issue. And even before the rupture, probably creating an issue, which was then feeding other things. So now I wasn't detoxing well. So black mold was going to be worse for me. Like everything was going to be worse. So what happened for me is once I removed the implants and started feeling so much better, I went on an extreme detox thing. I mean, I came back, the pendulum has swung back a little bit now, but to the point where I removed amalgam fillings. I like literally did everything I want. I was like, I want everything that is hurting me out of my body. I think the only thing I kept doing at the time was coloring my hair. That was it. But I stopped everything else. And I said, I want to see what my body's capable of getting that healthy and learning how to open up detox pathways and because we're always going to be exposed to toxins, right? But like, I wanted my body to be a well-oiled machine that it could actually get rid of things. So that led me to rethinking everything I teach. And it's not that I teach detoxing. What I teach now is being your own health detective. And when women say, hey, I'm just older, it's menopause, that's why I'm gaining weight, I say there's more to the puzzle. Like, yes, let's clean up your diet. Let's clean up your mindset. Let's move your body. And let's look at all the things that could be contributing. The answer might not just be hormones. It might not just be thyroid. It might not just be gut health. There's other things. And if we're not looking at all of it and being a true health detective, including your implants, then we're missing some pieces here. I don't know that everyone needs to go remove them, but we need to have that as a variable and have a conversation. Is this something contributing? Now, when I shared that recently on social media, I had a few people really mad at me and they said, you really need to clarify if it's a medical necessity. And no, I don't. I'll tell you why. Just because you had a mastectomy and you had cancer doesn't give you a pass to put implants in. I understand psychologically why you want them, but I'm not going to pretend like they're completely healthy for you. Just because you need a knee replacement and put some, you're still going to have leakage. I have metal in my toe. I have metal in my arm I'm not in denial that helps me function. And I'm still at risk for metal toxicity. So I'm not going to give people a pass just because they have a medical necessity. Now, one choice might be better than the other, but we're fooling ourselves to act like we can implant something in our body and it's going to be completely healthy.
Well, without knowing it, Natalie has just set up, a discussion about Sharp and our program and how we run things. So, I did explants for a number of years and then the pandemic happened. And instead of being able to refer people out to functional providers like Laura, who helped you, or Aaron, who you worked with, the pandemic basically, shifted everything for us. So we had to bring everything in house. And I've always had a very, very strong interest in genetics because I have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And so and we didn't really understand. And it took us a long time to, as a family, go gluten free and then
Hmm.
eat, how everybody would do. And my wife kind of led the charge in this. So I'll give her, tons of credit. The thing with genetics is, to your point, you can only detoxify so much. And there are certain limitations that we identify in patients using Envision Labs. That's the current genetic testing vendor we use, because they also look at drug metabolism, because you'll find a lot of people who don't detoxify, as a compounding factor, have very difficult times with drugs, whether a anxiety medicine or a pain medicine or anything. They just
Like they're super sensitive to them.
yeah. And when they say sensitive, it's like, if you don't understand things from a genetic standpoint, you can drink too much caffeine or eat too much sugar or take the wrong medication and have a really bad reaction.
Yeah.
And that's a genetic component. Like I always say, you can't pick your parents and you can't outrun a bad diet. So
Yeah. Mine show that genetic component, by the way, on my DNA. So it makes sense.
yeah, so that's just a genetic component. And then we always do a tox test to look for mycotoxins, which I've heard you talk about on your show, and heavy metals. And basically, the biggest thing that we find is all the environmental toxins. So things like bisphenols and phthalates, glyphosates, things that atrazine, all sorts of chemicals that get into us from where we lived, where we worked, where we, did an activity, whatever it was. Those things get into our system. And when your body can no longer cope with the amount of it, you experience what you experience. And then once you start, clawing those things back, if you will, then you can actually get to a point where your body can handle then and provide, balance is how I think about it. You'll be back in balance, which is what you are now.
Yeah.
You've done all these different things. And the dental thing, I've interviewed a bunch of biologic dentists, and that is such a big factor in patients who, they'll come to me and like, should I get my, dental work done or should I get my breast implants out? And, I'm not here to like decide that for someone. I explain to them like, if that is the paramount thing, if you've always had a problem with a root canal being infected, by all means, that's what
you got to get that out.
Care of. And yours was the opposite. Yours was a breast implant that had been probably infected for, a long period of time. And so that was paramount to you getting better. Now you're doing all these things now, and now they probably, you make so much more in terms of gains now that you've gotten the big step kind of out of the way.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like the domino effect, right? Like it's all important, but at what level? And I do believe women, we get to pick our toxins. I'm not expecting everyone to be perfect. So for example, I color my hair. I'm not going to stop. Like I'll be 90 coloring my hair. It's my choice. But where the toxins from that would have affected me more, probably when I was overloading my whole system. Another thing I didn't bring up was I had very elevated liver numbers for years. We couldn't figure out why. And now I know that's obviously why. Like my body was trying to do its job and clean things out. It was just overloaded. So I'm asked that same thing too. Should I remove amalgam? Should I remove root canal? I mean, it depends, but the things that are simple to fix, let's do it. Removing an amalgam is not that complicated, and it's not that expensive, by the way. We should all remove those like that. There's no reason to have that in. Am I going to go remove my metal in my arm that's repaired my bicep? No, I'm going to keep that there because I need my right arm and I want to be able to use that. But I'm also aware that I need to get my body really good at eliminating problems that could be caused from that. So it's just interesting that we're the first people to want to fix all these things, but looking at breast implants, there's just still so many women in denial that this is a thing. And I understand why the defense around it, but it's naive to think that it's not contributing to some of our health issues.
Yeah. And, for everybody listening, I'll explain the breast cancer problem since Natalie brought it up. So I always worked in big medical centers. So our country is massive. Like I live in Texas, Spain can fit in Texas. So part of the problem is sheer size of the country. And then we don't have densely populated cities. Some people think we do, but we really don't relative to the rest of the world. And once you get outside of, say, I'm in Austin, you can get 20 minutes outside of this place and be very rural very quickly. Yeah. And so then that creates a situation where the most common form of breast reconstruction that's going to get discussed with you is going to be an implant-based reconstruction because that's what they can do. based on their facility, based on their, nursing, aftercare, all the things that, are involved in it. And so that's why you have this
Yeah.
80-20 almost, if you will. Like if you're going to get reconstructed, we'll just say about 80% are going to be with an implant-based reconstruction because that's what they can accomplish for you. And once again, that's after being explained, all the
Totally.
options. And I did deep flap reconstruction. So it was a totally different, reconstructive ladder for me. I discussed all the different things. But if you're coming to see me, you had already decided you probably didn't want an implant.
Mm-hmm.
And you were laser focused on using your own tissue. And I used to convert a lot of old implant-based reconstructions to your own or an autologous reconstruction with a deep flap. And so when patients who have cancer and have been reconstructed with implants, seek out advice from me, I explain that to them. And that's an option, but you have to find, obviously, then the surgeon that resonates with you that can perform that. And you may have to travel, obviously. I mean, people travel from all over the U.S. and outside the U.S. to see me now, but that's the rub. Like you have to right surgeon, they have to fit with you personally and what you want to have as an outcome. And that's a hard thing for some people to wrap their mind.
It's hard, but I did have not had cancer. So it's interesting for me to even say this because I'm not in the shoes of somebody that would. I think, and I don't know because I'm not in that situation, but I think if that is the situation and there is a cancer diagnosis, that you would want to do every possible thing to clean up your body. So to me, putting an implant in that's not going to help. It helps the vanity of it, which is a huge part. It's just not going to help the health of it. So that's where I feel. Again, it's everyone's personal choice. Like I do, like I said, I had them for 33 years. I have compassion. I understand. You'll never change my mind that they're healthy for us. I don't believe that they're healthy.
And that's the actual problem, right? So you and I understand the other factors. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that people are not learning and understanding, in terms of their own health. Like we have this amount of environmental stress and toxins. We have this in our diet. We have our gut health. We have our hormonal balance. And those things are still not really easily understood by the layperson. So that's hard for them to objectively understand and make a decision because they just don't know. They don't have that background. They're not getting that background overall. And that's part of the, issue. And additionally, like I have a lot of people that also seek out holistic oncology care and advice, and they use NATIA's program. So they're trying to clean up their environment, their terrain. So that's a big, issue. And I have people like constantly tell me they're like not getting traditional oncology treatment because they don't want it. They don't want to have traditional treatments. They want to take a holistic option.
Yeah. Now, I personally am not against Western medicine. I think there's a combination of everything. But when people defend implants and say they're FDA approved, whatever, but it's like, but we're ignoring a whole big part of it. And that's the amount of women that have removed their implants and feel amazing and things cleared up. So we can't deny that. And I used to think like, I used to think I was guilty of it. I thought the BII people, it's like a cult. They're crazy. They believe everybody has it. But
they don't like me. I can tell you that. If you go on those groups, they don't like me either.
They don't like you, the BII community? Why?
No, because I don't think you should get medical advice on Facebook.
Oh, got it. Okay. So
I mean, if somebody wants to know something, I had a patient, just last week ask me about 18 different questions from, things in that group. And I was like, where are these coming from? Well, because patients,
I get it. You're a doctor. It's not medical, but it is real shares. It is real share. And I don't know that I'm not in the group, but like and I certainly don't give medical advice, but I do share. So it's listening and getting from real women that walk through it. It's important to at least be aware of it, I think.
Oh, yeah. I'm not talking about the sharing part. I get feedback. There's a lot of fear mongering about different things.
I see.
And that's not okay.
No, I get that. Yeah, the fear mongering, no. But being aware and understanding and listening, there's a lot of women that took them out and feel like a different person, had results. Thyroids changed, hormones changed, weight gain changed, foggy head. Like everything that we've been told is just getting older. A lot of that has cleared up when we get to the root.
And I think, what in your conversation with Ricky, I was like, because we have a detoxification program and functional practitioners in my on my staff running it, you don't really see the back end like we do. So like, worked with Laura, but we have multiple people in capacity, and currently we use Cellcore for detox. So
yeah, Cellcore is great. That's what we use.
Yeah. So we have all this kind of in and wrapped into our program. So
that's great.
When people say they're, and I know Ricky, so I'll say this, when they don't know what they don't know, right? You don't see the back end and you don't know what everybody's actually doing in recovery. Well, we do. And I don't have a group of, quote unquote, people who regret how they feel. Now, the appearance changes are real problem.
Oh, yeah. The appearance thing is shocking. I'm not going to lie. That's a hard one. Yes. I was definitely shocked the first time I saw it. So, I will tell you this, even though Ricky does not go and talk a lot about BII or any of that, and he still will put implants in because he's going to do what the patient wants. He did take his wife's out after mine. So that did happen.
I haven't talked to him about that.
I mean, he took them out. So I think his wife saw what I was going through. I'm friends with her. Yeah. So I don't know the conversation behind closed doors around it, but hers did come out and he did take them out after mine. So I'll leave it at that.
I mean, I appreciate that he is like, there's people who are super against it. Mm-hmm. Then, obviously our group has done thousands of explants and helped people recover. So we are very aligned with what people want to do. And then I at least he's viewing it, more in a balance, looking at, both and understanding there's benefit in those cases that, like yours and others who he knows will do well with that.
Well, here's the thing. Every surgeon I went to said to me, besides him, you're not going to like how you look. But it was never a conversation about health. It was like, you're not going to like how. So they're doing their job as a plastic surgeon. Like, I want to help you look different, right? And then when I would say, well, what about the health things? Oh, well, the FDA, or it was like these little comments about it. But he was the first one to suggest it. And to me, if your surgeon's not at least having the conversation with you about it, that to me is the red flag. I'm not saying they have to say I'm not putting him in, but there should be a conversation that some women, just to ignore it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's not fair to the patient. So we just want everybody to have, in summary, like I've told this to everyone, anybody who seeks me out, just like, if Natalie had came to me instead of if Ricky, we would have talked about it. I would have said, look, you've had a lot of surgery. And this is what is typically in this situation wrong. It's bacterial contamination. And then you let the patient, after understanding all that, make an informed decision, because that's our job, is to help you make a better decision. I'm not.
Well, that's why I think you're great for that. And I do sing Ricky's praises because I think he actually really cares about patients. And that's the difference too. I think there's some surgeons that they don't. They're caring about the aesthetics. And then there's some surgeons that really do care from a health perspective. And I'll put him in that category. And that's why I think he is amazing for that. He changed my life. Like, he literally changed my life by suggesting that.
Well, that's a good place to end, because that's what's important. If folks want to hear Natalie's discussion with Dr. Ricky, they can go to her show. And then where can people learn more about what you do to help with their longevity and menopause health and all?
Thank you. Yeah. So, my podcast is called Midlife Conversations. So cover all the different topics. And then as far as my website, nataliejill.com. And then social media is Natalie Jill Fit everywhere.
All right. Y'all need to follow her. We do. So thank you for coming on. I'm glad we finally got this organized.
Thanks for having me.
We've been hitting and missing, but finally got it done.
Thank you.